your church leadership and other wise counsel that you report to about these matters if you find them pressing against your conscience. I never tell anybody just believe anybody just because they say it.
Oh, okay. All right. The link is up.
Yes,
I put it in, I pinned it, and yeah, I guess somebody's up.
I just had one. It just kind of came to me, and before I bring up Jacob, I see him in the back. One other question, because it just kind of dawned on me. Why is Paul only targeting worship and prayer when he talks about the veil? And in 1 Corinthians 11, it says, and I'll quote it here clearly because I'm still stuck on the veil thing or the different coverings. But if a woman's hair is long, this is verse 15, it is her glory, for the long hair is given to her as a covering. So that would be her natural covering, correct? Right? That would be the natural. So her hair is the covering.
Yes.
Not an additional veil, correct?
It's a veil. Yeah. The church fathers say
so her hair would be the veil. That would be the veil that she's supposed to wear in public. I'm guessing.
Yes.
I don't.
Only if she veils herself.
But I don't see any additional context of veil other than when she's worshiping. That's why I'm kind of lost.
I can explain it to you. That's a very common objection. It's the one that I struggle with too, but you hear the church fathers and they explain it so well. It makes so much perfect sense. Sometimes, guys, when we're reading the Bible, we come across something, Old Testament, New Testament, it makes no sense. The only way to understand it is with a historical context. Have you ever thought about how many times we're reading the New Testament and the Old Testament, we come across something?
You're talking about practicing good hermeneutics.
Right. Well, right. We need history to help us, guys. You can't divorce the scriptures from history. People try to do that. They're like, I go by the Bible alone. That's not even true. You're reading a translation. Somebody translated all these words because they know how they're used in regular Greek society. And I mean,
I use the logos.
Yeah. Think about like Jesus' parables. Jesus gives a parable about the Good Samaritan. Now, if you don't know who a Samaritan is, you don't get the meaning of that thing. Or think about the JWs. The Jehovah's Witnesses believe that Jesus was crucified to a stake and that he was not crucified. You realize how easy it would be to dispel that ridiculous lie if you just look up crucifixion. You know that it's not a spike. It's a big cross. So
can I ask you a question, Luke?
Yes.
Real quick. You mentioned homily 26 of St. John Chrysostom on the passage in 1 Corinthians. Where does it say anything about the face?
Well, let me answer this question first, and I will answer that for you, Joseph. It's at the part where he said not merely covered, but covered over. Look up that part. It's that part. It says where he says he means that she be carefully wrapped up on every side. And I can show you the Greek of what wrapped up means.
I just want to see what you're saying is.
Gentlemen, I just want to know we do have two guests in the back that do want to come up and ask questions.
Okay.
We did come through the debate, but I just didn't mean to take this longer than
No, you're right. Okay, I will answer it very quickly for you. Long story short, you can only understand this if you know history, but Paul is rebuking a custom that they had in Greece where men, when they would offer sacrifices, would cover their head, even the face. And it came from a very old custom that had been started by a guy named Aeneas. We have tons of quotes from Greek and Roman writers saying they had this weird practice where during sacrifices, the men would go. But
that's in the homily. The homily mentions the Grecian custom of men covering their heads, but this covered over part I don't see anywhere.
Are you looking for, he said, not merely covered, but covered over?
I just looked up covered over because that should pull up any instance, and it doesn't.
I'll give you the exact reference.
While that's being discussed, I'm going to go ahead and bring up Jacob, the son of
son of Christendom.
Son of Christendom up first to ask his question, and then we have Father Boniface in the back as well.
There's also Plotinus Foe.
Oh yes, Plotinus Foe. I see him as well. So I'm going to bring them up and let them answer a question.
That's fine. I hope I get to answer this for you, Glenn, because I can read you maybe just one quote where I can show you the Greeks veiled their face during prayer. So Paul is saying, you men during prayer don't do that, and you women don't take off your veil during prayer. Keep your veil on. She already had a veil on. Paul doesn't say, I want you to put on veils at prayer. He never says that. He says, don't unveil yourself at the time of prayer. That's what he says.
That's not what Paul says in the scripture. I just read the scriptures. It didn't say don't unveil. it says, you know, your glory, you're the glory of man, right? And then he
Yes.
goes down that whole list. He doesn't say don't remove your veil. He says you're to be veiled at that
Yeah.
point.
He
And
says,
St. John Chrysostom says the same thing in Homily 26.
no, he doesn't. He says, not at the time of prayer only, but also continually she is to be veiled. That's what he says in Homily 26.
I can just read what it says
I'm
in
just
the
gonna bring
homily.
up-
I've got it in front of me.
Again, like I said, gentlemen, the debate is over.
Yeah,
I'm going to bring
it's
up
over.
the
Yeah,
questions.
yeah, I'm sorry.
All right, so here's Jacob.
Okay. Okay, so I'm not sure what I want to ask. We can't ask anything about like him addressing one of Luke's points because I was trying to get him to address some of Luke's patristic quotes.
You
But we
could
can't
ask
do that.
him
Debate's
whatever
over.
question that you want, whether he chooses to answer it. If it's not pertaining to the debate itself, he could deny the answer because we're trying to stick closer to the point.
Okay.
But you're free to ask him whatever you would like to ask him.
All right.
He gets the choice to answer it, whether he
Okay.
wants to or
I
not.
think I will do that because I bet Father Boniface is going to ask about the ecclesiology question. So, okay, I'll go to, either go to like the quote from St. Ambrose or St. John Chrysostom or whatever, because I read those, and I, as someone who is, Luke and I have a history going back a year and a half. We're not friends. I'm not against orthodoxy, but having read that seriously shakes me because those look like explicit commandments from St. Chrysostom and St. Ambrose saying to veil the face. And I've talked to Roman Catholics and they say, yes, that is 100% right, but we doctrinally developed away from it. Now, you being Orthodox, you don't accept any change at all, Father Joseph, but there's a very clear change there. And St. Nicodemus brings it up that St. Chrysostom taught the face veil. So if we could go and, I know we pulled up St. Nicodemus, if we could pull up St. Ambrose and St. Chrysostom that Luke did, and you could address those if possible.
Okay, well, first off, let's start with St. Nicodemus. As I mentioned, that he was operating within the Ottoman Empire. That was the time he was living in. If we go comparatively to the Russian Empire, which was Christian, you can find examples of occasional face veiling, but in reality, most people did not wear face veils. They did cover their heads, and very ornately women did, but they didn't face veil.
It's condemned.
So
it's always condemned.
Well, my concern is St. Nicodemus seems to be saying that this was the practice of the early church, and he cites one of the three holy hierarchs, St. Chrysostom, right? And Chrysostom is highly authoritative for the Orthodox and the Roman Catholics. That's why I'm like,
that's why I'm surprised. The problem that I'm having here is that when I'm looking at Homily 26, which Luke has referenced multiple times in this debate, I don't see a reference to a face veil. I don't see a reference to.
You didn't look at his patristic quotes?
I'm looking at the actual homily here, Jacob. I'm saying what he's saying isn't there.
Do you think Nicodemus was just seeing things, or how did he come to the conclusion that John Chrysostom?
First off, it's Saint Nicodemus.
Why did he think that John Chrysostom taught face veiling?
Well, I don't know.
I'd have to, gentlemen.
I'm going to be honest.
Hold on, Luke. Luke, this is not a 2v1. This is Jacob asking a question, Father Joseph responding to it.
Yeah, and Luke can respond to that. Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I'd never seen that quote before in my life. I've never engaged it. I tried to make sense of it in terms of cultural context. However, I didn't know. I'd have to look. I'd have to study it now. But
I wanted to debate. This is why I told you. This is why I told you. No offense, Father. This is why I told you a few weeks ago that I already said Luke is correct on this. He's smiling because he knows I'm honest at least. Luke is correct on this. I would just say we need to now. I hadn't seen this quote from Saint Nicodemus. That's what's really throwing me here. I would have said that we authoritatively changed it later, but the fact that Martin Luther and Saint Nicodemus affirmed this to be the case, that's binding on the Lutherans and on the Eastern Orthodox. So really, only the Roman Catholics have a reason to not veil the face anymore.
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't know that I agree with you there. And the simple reality is because
I have the same problem with Lutherans all the time.
I don't believe his present. Yeah, but I don't believe his presentation's honest. For example, at one point just recently, he said, well, what are they talking about? Sandstorms in ancient Greece. But I wasn't referencing ancient Greece. I was referencing ancient China. That's just deceptive behavior.
I don't even think that was that important.
It's not, but that's my point. If you take the totality of history, then what Luke is saying is a lie. And if what he's saying from the beginning is a lie, whatever's from the beginning is the truth, and he's lying from the beginning.
Well, he's not a historian. He's
Then don't include them. Don't say that is the worldwide custom when you know for a fact it's not the worldwide custom. That's what makes him deceptive.
I think you would have done a better job if you had, although I guess not, because you hadn't seen those quotes
Because this
before.
is not
And
an
I wasn't-
opinion
and I
time,
wasn't-
this
I
is
wasn't
question
fat-
time.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
So
This
for Father Joseph, can you pull up the quotes and answer those quotes from St. Ambrose and St. Chrysostom?
I'd have to see them again.
I guess can Luke send them or?
Yeah. About face
And-
feeling?
Yeah, because that would prove the well, your synod is the synod of Milan, isn't it? So that
Well-
he's one of your patron saints.
Don't forget that
Yeah, I
Nicodemus
know.
could read Greek. So I mean, I'm pretty sure
Hey,
if he's telling you that's what
Luke.
he's
Hey,
saying,
Luke. Trivia time's over. Just find the quote.
there it is. I just posted it.
Okay. thank
Where
you.
did you post it at? Is it in the
I
private chat?
Probably
It's
in
in
the private
private chat.
chat.
That's
Yeah.
Chrysostom.
Okay.
Okay, but he
I'm
may
on
not,
26.
Well, I
not
wanted to
nearly
be able to
covered,
see-
but
I can-
covered
Is there a way to
maybe.
bring it up on the screen? Because
Here
if
we
we're
go.
talking about something, the audience needs to be able to refer
Sure,
to it
sure.
as well.
Here
Well,
we go.
I have the quote. I have the thing on the screen. Give me a second.
Okay.
Okay.
Here we,
Okay. This is
There we
what
go.
he's quoting. Let me
Mhm.
see. Okay. Let's see the thing.
Mm,
Thus, in the beginning, simply requires that the head be not bare. Okay. So finding bare should not be hard in this.
yeah. Yeah, this doesn't seem as explicit as Ambrose, where he literally says like the face must be covered. Ambrose was
It is if you look up the
Is it-
Greek. When he says carefully
okay,
wrapped
okay.
up
Because
on
I
every
sent
side,
Ambrose to a priest friend of mine, and he just ignored it. He
Mhm.
wouldn't anyway.
it's
Mhm.
completely wrapped around the entire side. That's the words he uses.
Yeah.
And
I'm
we
looking-
know
I'm-
that
I'm
because
pulling this up.
Nicodemus guys can read Greek. He knows that
Hold on.
Chrysostom is saying a face.
Yeah, and I've seen Roman Catholics I've talked to about this where they just admitted that like Clement of Alexandria taught it, and St. Ambrose and St. Augustine, and I mean,
Look at the next quote, though. He says that Paul was betaking himself to the common custom, which even from men's ordinary practice they might have learned, for such things are not unknown even to barbarians. He's saying they're all practicing this.
But what is he referencing it to, though? Is he referencing it to worship, or is he referencing it to common everyday walking around outside, going to the marketplace?
Look right
That's-
there. He says Paul signifies that not at the time of prayer only, but also continually, she ought to be covered.
And that's where I'm wondering, where does he get that from? Because like I'm reading right now, First Corinthians 11, where it says, follow my example as I follow the example of Christ. I praise that you remember me in everything for holding the traditions just as I pass them on to you. But I want you to realize that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of every woman is man, and the head of Christ is God. Every man who prays or prophesies with his head covered dishonors his head.
Mhm.
But every woman who prays or prophesies with her head uncovered dishonors her head.
Yes.
It is the same as having her head shaved. For if a woman does not cover her head, she might as well cut off her hair. But if it's disgraceful for a woman to have her hair cut off or her head shaved, then she should cover her head. And a man ought not to cover his head, since he is in the image and glory of God. But woman is in the glory of man. For man did not come from woman, but woman came from man. Neither was man created from woman, but woman created for man. It is this reason for woman ought to have authority over her own head because of the angels. Nevertheless, in the Lord, women is not independent of man, nor is man independent of woman. For as a woman came from man, so does a man born of a woman. But everything comes from God. And then he goes, and judge yourself if is it proper for a woman to pray to God with her head uncovered? Does not the very nature of the things to teach you that if a man has long hair, it is a disgrace to him. But if a woman has long hair, it is her glory, for long hair is given to her as a covering. If anyone wants to be contentious about this, we have no other practice, nor do the churches of God. So it just seems that he's referring to more very specifically to worship here. And
Yes.
I'm wondering is this what they're saying Paul is saying, is referencing? Because
Yes.
if John Chrysostom saying that Paul is saying this in worship head covering, and he's extrapolating that to mean every day, I just don't understand.
No, he's not extrapolating it. No, because remember, we already knew the Jews did it, Glenn. They were already doing it. It was a worldwide custom. The Greeks also veiled themselves in public, but there was something specific about Greece. They had this custom where men and women would exchange clothing only at the time of prayer. They didn't exchange clothing the rest of the time. That's why he's saying this is disgraceful that you're doing this at the time of prayer. But that doesn't mean that she only needs to wear her veil at the time of prayer. He's just saying this is the time you're taking it off. And that's why I'm saying that is so disgraceful for you to do that. And notice the reasons he gives. He says, because of the angels. He says, it's natural. He talks about her needing to be subject to her man. He says, this is the custom of all the churches.
Because he keeps on referring, well, the covering of woman is who? Man. So.
Well, he says her hair is given to her as a covering. So he is also talking about physical coverings. He also realized the head of every woman or every man is Christ, and the head of every woman is man. The head of Christ is God. And then he goes into like the cover, if it would be disgraceful to who? Her covering, right? Which
would be the man.
Let me give you an analogy. Let's say you were in a church and you were caught using some foul language or something, and somebody said, you're cussing in a church. Like if somebody said that you're cussing in a church, that doesn't mean, Glenn, I'll let you go in just a second, Joseph. It doesn't mean that cussing in a church, like that's the only place you shouldn't cuss. It's that you're doing this in the church, but it's bad all the time. So he's saying if she were immodest all the time, that would be bad, just like it is in the Old Testament. It was bad for those guys to take off Susanna's veil. That was horrible. But he's saying you're doing this in the church, and he's saying that is egregious.
Okay, I want Father Joseph to go because I want to get.
I'm still looking at this homily, and I'm looking at the parts you put on the screen. But when I see in context, what I don't see what you're saying. Let me just see here, because I would recommend everyone just read the full homily 26.
Hey, can I ask a quick question, Glenn? Is there any way I have a friend who's a priest and he's live texting me in the background. I don't know if you heard my phone. Is there any way he could call in via phone to answer about Saint Nicodemus?
Oh, that would be handy.
You could have him call.
I don't know if he has internet right now. He's texting me on his phone.
Are you on your phone right now?
I'm on my PC, but I'm on my phone, holding my phone and texting my friend. And
if he could call your phone and you could put your phone to the microphone. I mean, that's the best thing to do. I mean, there's no hotline to call in right now to be a part of this stream. I did not set up a hotline for it. Maybe next time. But I want to make sure we got this answer, but I don't want to take too much time because I do want to bring up the other guest. I don't want to take, again, we're already 20 minutes past the 3 hours. I don't want to take much more time.
If he knows about Saint Nicodemus, I want to hear it, because unfortunately
he wants me to send in the quote. If Luke can put a link in the chat, I can send it to my priest friend so he can examine it. And this is the priest.
I thought he had something to say about it.
No, he doesn't know the quote that Luke is talking about.
He'll have to buy the physical copy. You have to go on the website.
So is there no digital like screen capture that we could get of this and then send it to him?
No, I found an Orthodox person observing me debating another Orthodox person, and he said, "Have you ever read this quote from Nicodemus?" So he posted a tiny snippet of it, and I had to go and get the whole thing. You have to use all your money.
So do you have the whole thing that you could screen capture?
Well, sure. You want to take a picture of it?
Yeah, I mean that way he could at least
put it in the chat.
That way. Though they have something to refer.
Sure, I can even show you Orthodox websites quoting it, so they're all aware of it. I found it from an Orthodox.
But I mean, I sure wasn't context of it, please. And while you're doing that, I want to bring up Father Boniface, unless Father Joseph wants to add anything to this current. I think this is still undecided.
I would just say honestly, read homily 26. It's not making the implications Luke says it is.
So do you think that women should be veiled continually? Is that what your church teaches, Joseph? Not just at the time of prayer, but continually?
Let's bring up Father Boniface. Honestly, you're infuriating me, dude.
Father Boniface, thank you for joining us. Jacob, I'm going to just put you back down in the back.
Yeah,
you don't have to go anywhere, but I'm just going to bring you down, okay?
Yep.
Brother Joseph, welcome. Or Boniface, thank you. Welcome.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay, good. There's a lot of issues that are flying around here. I see the issue of what is authority. I see the issue of custom versus tradition of the church. Father Joseph, I think, has brought up a good defense on the idea that customs, do not determine the eternal doctrines of the church. That's what liturgy is all about in a lot of ways. Liturgy has adopted itself or adapted itself to customs to a degree, which allows flexibility for the Holy Spirit to work within the nations. And so when you've got certain custom differences, do you have to say, take the 1st and 2nd and 3rd centuries and impose them upon the 21st century? You see? And so that becomes a problem. And so it generates a lot of confusion, which I think is Luke is expressing and showing to everyone here tonight, which brings the next issue of what is his authority? Where does he get his authority? The scriptures say that the scriptures are not of any private interpretation, and that Paul told Timothy, the church is the pillar and ground of the truth. So these issues can be resolved if we believe that the church resolves issues because it's the pillar and ground of the truth. And so, and then another thing would be like harsh speech. You deal with an elder of the church, but we are elders of the true church. And so therefore, the scriptures teach that you are to speak respectfully and to not be harsh. But the book of Jude talks about people that talk harshly, like their hard speeches, which ungodly sinners have spoken against him. That would be Christ. And so therefore we're to honor authorities and to plead and to, like a son with a father, to plead and talk nicely. And so that has really painted Luke into a bad corner, the way he's, I'd say, being arrogant, harsh, trying to override truth with constant, things like that. So these are some of my observations. I would like to know what church Luke goes to.
I go to that church, Boniface, that Athanasius went to when the heretics took over the church and they had to go out in the deserts and flee those heretics. I go to the same
You're
church.
not in the desert, dude.
I go to the same church that John Chrysostom's entire
Well, who's
congregation went
your
to.
pastor?
Well, hold on a second.
Who's your priest?
I go to the
Yeah.
same church that they went to when they deposed and executed John Chrysostom. When he told them, if they pick another fake bishop, then do not attend his congregation. Leave the city
He
and
set up
just
a
go do it outside of the
separate. He
city.
set up a separate administration. You're
I go
lying
to
about
that
St.
church.
John.
I go
Okay,
to
Don't
that
go to
well,
that church.
Then who is
So-
your bishop?
My
Luke,
bishop
who is your bishop?
My bishop is the same bishop that the church has whenever any bishop is either martyred or becomes an apostate.
Who is your physical bishop on this earth now?
Ignatius says the church in Syria now has Christ as its bishop instead of me. That's my bishop. And my
So
bishops
you don't.
are.
So
and my
you don't
mother-
have a bishop in the church. You don't have a bishop on the earth. Okay.
Yeah, my
But the
mother.
church is the pillar and ground of the truth. Paul said that to Timothy. The visible church then was the pillar and ground of the truth, not an invisible Gnostic church, which is what you're basically saying you're part of, and using your private judgment and you're using your force of will to override, not only trying to override Father Boniface, but the people in your, quote, congregation, just by bully tactics, which your people need to realize you're doing and flee immediately. And so therefore you have no church, you have no authority, you have no scriptural authority. Prove it.
Father
Are we
Boniface, can
required
I
by-
ask
go
a
ahead,
question, a follow-up question? I do have a follow-up question for that. Luke, would you consider then there's basically no difference between you and a non-denominational church?
Well, non-denominational
In
means
principle,
Pentecostal.
because like they have a lot of non-denominational churches don't have any church doctrine or church like authority or established, present like history to refer to. They are whatever grace covenant of such and such valley church. Like there's no historical backing there. There's no covering. And are you saying like, and wouldn't you criticize those churches for not having that authority to support them?
Well, at the end of the day, every single person needs to do what Vincent said. If the church is being overrun with heresy, the only way they can know that they're part of the true church is by going and collating and interrogating the teachings of the early church fathers. That's what I'm commanded to do by Vincent. I, a layman, am commanded to do that. And the scriptures also command us to listen to the unified teaching of the early bishops. So that's what I'm doing. The early church also
No, it's not.
Hold on a second, Boniface.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
There also is a commandment in the early church that not just if the church falls into apostasy, but when it eventually does, that every single one of us is required to separate ourselves from the heretics. I'll just read one little quote. This is Apostolic Constitutions. He says, "But if it is not possible to go to the church on account of the unbelievers, you, O bishop, shall assemble them in a house, that a godly man may not enter into an assembly of the ungodly."
Are you a bishop?
Hold on, listen to the next part. "For it is not the place that sanctifies the man, but the man the place. And if the ungodly possess the place, avoid it, because it is profaned by them. For as holy priests sanctify a place, so do the profane ones defile it. And if it be not possible to assemble either in the church or in a house, let everyone by himself sing and read and pray, or two or three together. For where two or three are gathered together in my name, there I am in the midst of them." That's the commandment from the Apostolic Constitutions and from all the other church fathers. That's what
But
I'm obeying.
that implies that a person's already in the church and you're not.
Only if all your assumptions are true.
No, you're not. Who baptized you? Who's your bishop? Who's your
The ch-
priest? You have no authority. You don't believe, if I remember correctly, your sect doesn't believe that there are any authorities. Am I correct?
The early church fathers are an everlasting authority. And so are the scriptures.
But they also handed down their succession to other bishops. You
Well,
don't
tell me
believe
something.
that.
Do you believe that we are all required in an age where there's so much heresy to confirm that we're part of the true church by finding out what the church universally taught?
Yes.
I see. Now, at least admit, Joseph, that I am doing that. You just say I've come to the wrong conclusion, right?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. So I'm actually being
but to be fair, I would actually advocate that you are actually misrepresenting even the fathers you're claiming.
So, Joseph, I'm telling you, honestly, I will join whatever church obeys the universal teachings of the early church. And are
According to your opinion.
Well, tell me, you guys have already said you don't agree with the early church. You just said that you don't believe women should be veiled all the time. I've got John Chrysostom on the screen.
Yeah, except that I'm looking at that same homily, and it doesn't actually say that women should be veiled all the time.
What does it say?
I don't even think it's right here. Let me just. I have glasses.
It's always
now,
the same
so.
with you, Joseph. He says she should be veiled continually.
Just to be clear here, that's where I'm still confused, Luke. I have no dog in this fight, except for I like to be on the side of the truth. So, and if I'm having a hard time reading what this passage is that you have on the screen, and it meaning all the time, and then go also looking at 1 Corinthians, it doesn't, it specifies to worship. I'm trying to get to where you get to the next step where it's all the time.
Let me try. I totally understand.
I have the whole homily 26 on the screen, and it doesn't say that anywhere in the homily.
I have it on the screen. You could easily do a word search. Anyway,
let
me answer Glenn. That's a big question. It might be the biggest question out of all of this. How do we know this is about modesty and not just about some little adornment during prayer? And look at what he says.
Why do you call it a little adornment?
I wouldn't refer to it as a little adornment. I think it's
they wear a shawl over their heads.
Yeah. Let me answer.
You know what? Can I say something? Can I say something?
Let me answer. And
Jesus. Okay, go ahead. Answer, and then I'd like to say something.
Jesus' wife is veiled. Go look at the tabernacle. She's got a face veil. So let me look at this here. So we've got a situation where he says, doesn't nature itself teach you that if a woman has long hair, it's a glory to her? For her long hair is given her as a whole covering. See, it's a covering.
That's natural covering.
Right. Now think about that argument he's making. He's making an argument about nature, that a woman is supposed to be covered from nature. So that's how you know this is not just about prayer. Because is she supposed to only have long hair at the time of prayer, or does she always have long hair?
Yes, but her long hair is her covering.
Yes, if she lets it down. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so that is her covering. There's not this, that's the nature covering that God has given her as a gift, because that's her glory. So then where is this additional covering that she has to wear everywhere is where I'm getting at, because we see we see this additional covering when it comes to in worship. We see this now. Not only do you have to have your natural covering, but in worship there's this other covering you must have. That's where I see, but I don't see this everywhere else. You have to have this other covering. That's where I'm confused.
I understand, but he says her hair is given to her as a parabolaion. So peri means going around something, and balaion means throwing something. So you know how like you have the word perimeter, it means going all the way around something. He says her hair was given to her to wrap herself with. It's a wraparound. if she does that, she is fulfilling the law about veiling. I'm not denying that. The early church says that. It says her hair is her natural veil. But most women, they don't want to have to deal with the hair because it gets all tangly and everything. They can use it if they don't have anything else. But women historically have chosen to put a fabric veil on rather than use their hair.
But then would you say that the fabric veil then is not specified? It could be just the hair then,
Well,
you just said the hair
though.
could be the covering that covers their face if they wanted to.
Well,
So then,
notice that Paul uses the verb and not the noun. So he's saying you need to cover yourself, but he doesn't care how you do it. Just make sure you're covered. So I completely agree with you. But just notice historically, whenever somebody cataclysmed themselves, it was with fabric.
Can I make my point?
yes, Father Boniface. Thank you, Luke, for that clarity. Go ahead.
I'd like to say that I believe Luke is expressing himself to be in the Pharisaical tradition, where Jesus said that they strain in a gnat and swallow a camel, because we're dealing with an issue of veiling the face, which he explodes to the ignoring of the Eucharist, the authority of the church, apostolic succession, the traditions of the church, the sacraments. These are major issues. And so he, being in his cult mind, has exploded this to be a great source of authority and power that is all fake, that he thinks he has, which some people who are ignorant follow, but ignoring the major tenets of the scriptures. And so these things, like salvation, the Eucharist, the authority of the church, Jesus is King of Kings and Lord of Lords, these are essential and must also be held, which you do not have, because you're not of a true church. You have no bishop, you have no authority, you have no faith in Christ, you have no submission, humility, or obedience. You are in rebellion with your harsh speech, your private judgment, your mocking. Father Joseph won the debate. He's done an excellent job. He's been overridden with your intimidation and your harsh talk and your insolence and your arrogance.
I crush him. I'll do it again if he wants it.
Okay, that's your opinion. You're entitled to your opinion.
Gentlemen.
Instead of talking about,
we have two other people in the back.
I just have one question though for Luke though, because now I'm confused. He quoted Saint Ignatius of Antioch saying that Christ is your bishop now, right? You quoted that, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you know there were other bishops after Saint Ignatius?
Yep.
Okay, so did Saint Ignatius not know that there would be another bishop of Antioch? What are you trying to say?
Well, he lays down a principle that if the bishop dies, the church doesn't just disappear; the church is still there, isn't it?
Okay, then you're misinterpreting Saint Ignatius.
No,
okay, go to the next
you.
question. No,
I just
go to the
answered
next
you,
question.
and you didn't like that answer.
Yeah, I just answered you. Okay, great. Okay.
Yeah, the church continues to exist, guys. Even if the bishops are dead, they're still a church.
It's difficult to get around your arguments when you're quite proud and arrogant. I mean, we can't get over on you. Father Joseph made a good point when he said that Tarsus was in Syria. Therefore, it's a local custom. It wasn't universal. But you refused to submit to that and own up to maybe you might be in some error.
Does Chrysostom say it's a universal custom?
Do you get the point? You didn't accept his point. Okay, that Tarsus was in Syria. Okay, and so therefore, would you accept that point, that it is custom ruling that issue in that particular point? Would you admit that?
Boniface, you need to spend some hours studying like I have and see this was
okay. You don't want to admit it. That's fine. You just go ad hominem and you just criticize me, but you don't want to admit it. I got it.
We're gonna move on to the next guest that's in the back waiting to come up. Father Boniface, would you like to stay up top or would you like to be brought down?
I can hang if you want me to hang in there, and if I have an opportunity to maybe make a point, I can make it. That's no problem. Whatever you want to do.
Okay, I have no problem as long as we give the new guest the floor, that they take priority in addressing any questions or thoughts. And
I'll ask permission, obviously, to say.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to bring up John Reader, or Reader John.
Oh man, painful.
Hey, buddy. How are you?
Hey, buddy. It's me. Would you want to debate me next, John? I mean, I'm disappointed.
No, I'm not going to waste my time. I think Father took care of you. But
okay, what's happening, Father?
Have you read Saint Ignatius of Antioch, guys?
I'm going to stop my
Yes.
cam now.
So
Okay.
it says wherever
I
the
don't
bishop
see you
is,
yet.
there is the
You can
church.
stop your cam, but
So that-
click
I
get
could-
go
Hold
to
on, I'm
studio.
sorry. Father Joseph, you have a hot mic. Father Joseph, your mic is hot.
Oh,
Can I-
sorry.
Yeah,
Thank
he
you.
says wherever the bishop is, there's the
I'm aware.
church.
I'm
So
aware.
there's the authority. So who's your bishop?
So
Reader
you-
John, I'm sorry. Could you repeat that? Because just because there was the over the top
Okay, so the letters of Saint Ignatius of Antioch, when he's writing to the faithful that are following him on his journey to Rome to be martyred in the Colosseum, he commends them that wherever the church or wherever the bishop is, there is the church. So that's where one of the quotes that we could say contributes to the apostolic succession, which Luke's mystery cult does not fall under. He doesn't have a bishop. But my actual question was, I was going to ask Luke, since he's the spokesman of his mystery cult, to define what dogma and doctrine is to him. And I wanted Father Joseph to do the same thing. And I wanted him to explain, does face veiling, if it really does exist, like he says it does it elevate to the level of dogma or doctrine? And then I want Father Joseph to do the same thing.
I'll go first. You don't know the definition of dogma because you guys say, was this a dogma of the church? A dogma just means something that you hold and you enforce with authority and you don't compromise on it. That's what a dogma is. It's something that you're not willing to cave on, something you're not willing to compromise on. And so we can look at individual church fathers and see that they were dogmatic and they were all in unity on this doctrine. So yes, it was a dogma of all the church fathers for many centuries and also the Jews. A dogma is the universal teaching, or the only thing that matters is the universal teaching of the church. That is where I get my authority. I don't have any authority, but you guys do have to obey the universal teaching of the church, especially because you claim to be them.
What's a doctrine?
A doctrine is a teaching.
So
And-
basically,
Go ahead, Father.
I was just going to say, so basically you're an apocalyptic cult.
You'd say that to Athanasius. You join that Arian church.
No,
you
no,
say,
no.
how can
I
the whole
wouldn't-
church be in
wouldn't say-
heresy?
No, I wouldn't. That's
Hey,
not
Luke,
what I'm saying.
Can you
That's
shut
not
up
what
and
I'm
let
saying.
Father Joseph define what a dogma and doctrine is, and if supposed
right,
face
so-
veiling holds up to that level?
A doctrine is a teaching of the church. A dogma is a teaching of which is required of a person. If they do not accept dogma, the dogma of the church, they're usually in heresy. The problem is that one of the things the fathers taught universally was that there would be a perpetual succession of bishops until the end of days.
Who's the earliest
The
one?
reason I said you're an apocalyptic cult is because you do not believe there are any bishops worth following. That means that we are in the end of days. According to the fathers you're supposedly quoting. Am I right?
So follow-up question is veiling a pious custom, a doctrine, or a dogma?
For me or him?
Both.
Well, it's a doctrine from the Apostle Paul. Do you think Paul was dogmatic about his teaching?
I'm not.
Is that a
I'm
yes?
not. I'm not. I'm asking what your mystery cult
Well,
thinks.
you either obey the Apostle Paul and the universal teaching of the church, or you disobey it. You've got all these fancy words. Oh, it's a dogma. Well, maybe it's a doctrine. Well, maybe it's just a canon.
Well, you're the one who stated it's a dogma, so
It's a
just-
doctrine from the Apostle Paul, which he received from Christ, and you better obey it.
But you said it was a dogma earlier in your
The
in your
doctrine
debate.
from Paul, which he received from Christ, and you'd better obey Christ.
So you
And
said
if-
face veiling is a dogma. How does it elevate to the level
John,
of
if you
dogma?
want to risk it, you can go to Judgment Day and say, "God, I thought your doctrine was."
Can
was
you
that-
can you actually answer a question
Yeah,
for
you know,
once?
it was a
How does
dogma.
you said it elevates to the level of dogma? How is it a dogma?
No, I don't use your stupid words. All the church fathers were.
You're the one who
dogmatic.
said it,
Apostle
genius.
Paul was dogmatic.
You're the one who said it during the
I
debate.
don't have your definition of a dogma, John.
How do you
Okay, I have a
baptize-
question. Let me just maybe this will kind of settle this before we bring up the next guest. Does either one of your guys' positions believe that the head covering is a salvation issue?
Well, if you put together all the church fathers' writings, they definitely make it a salvation issue. So I do too. But I'm
I
also
don't
not the
believe that.
judge.
I believe that you're not being honest.
You want me to quote them?
You can try.
You can
You didn't
quote
do
mine
well
all
with
you want.
I'm just wondering, like, is this a salvation or salvific issue? or is this a secondary issue?
Well, you listen to it and you decide. See, I'm not going to risk it. I would never ask a question like that.
So, Glenn, are you asking is it a salvation issue or a pious custom? Is that what you're asking?
Yes. That's pretty much what I'm asking, because then I think of Mark 7, right? 7, 8 through 9, where it says, like, you have done away with God's commands, and you have a fine way of clinging to tradition of man. Then you have done away with the commands of God to create your own traditions. Could this be considered the extreme of creating own tradition, or is this sticking to the commands of God? Because that's a question that I have when I also come across this, because if God judges the heart of man, or our hearts, are we saying the women that are unaware that they're supposed to be covered from head to toe, are they going to hell if they did that their whole life? And
so Glenn's kind of wondering what I'm wondering. Is it part of the 2,000-year-old church tradition, or is it part of this 10-year-old mystery cult with no authority?
You guys first started saying that it was vile and disgusting. Now you're saying maybe it's just a pious tradition. You are so inconsistent.
No, we were
pious
saying
custom.
I was saying
you need to listen, son. I said pious custom.
And I was saying that you're vile and disgusting, not that the tradition of veiling is vile and disgusting.
No, I have a direct quote from you. I have a direct quote.
You also said this was dogma, which you now not acknowledging.
Direct quote. You said, it's actually really vile. I think there's some perverse interest in looking at your wife like she's constantly a virgin. So you didn't.
You also said
that's the Muslim position.
And you also said veiling is a matter of dogma. Let me prove it to you. You also said that, mister. So is it dogma or is it not?
I obey the Apostle Paul, who received this from Christ. Where did Paul get his doctrine?
You said dogma.
Where did he get this doctrine?
Which doctrine? The doctrine of the Eucharist? The doctrine of apostolic succession? Which one?
Availing.
Dogma implies it's required.
Where did he get the doctrine of veiling? Did he get it from Christ?
I thought you said
it was let them answer. Let them answer, Glenn. These guys went silent when I asked the most obvious question. Where did Paul get?
Where did you get your doctrine of private judgment?
Oh, so stupid. So you can't answer the question. You are.
It's a tradition of it's a tradition in Temple Judaism, actually. So and it's a covering of the head, not of the face.
You guys have shown your true colors. You won't even
actually. I know about Temple Judaism. That's my actual degree.
I got like a question for Luke. If you say God from Christ, that's great. But then why does Paul just only talk about the? This is where I keep on getting stuck with you. Like I want to be able to hear it through, because okay, if it sounds, all right.
Call me. I'll have a call with you.
He's conflating the issue of face veil with a head veil, because all the literature talks about a crown. A crown is on your head, not on your face, is it?
I already answered this. Cataclysm means
actually, you didn't answer it. I'm waiting for an answer.
John, cataclysm means it starts.
That's Reader John to you, son.
It starts here and it goes down.
Yeah.
Are you listening?
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to listen, but you're not actually answering the question.
Cataclypto. You don't have cataclypto because it doesn't go down.
It's a verb, not a noun.
Kata is the same either way.
I'm very aware of Greek. Thank you.
Glenn, I should mention that Father Chad, he was actually the priest that Jacob was trying to get on. He's actually here now.
Oh, he's here. Is he in the chat?
Yeah, Father Chad on. Father Chad on.
Oh, okay. John, Reader John, thank you for coming up. I'm going to go ahead and bring you down.
Okay.
And thank you for your input. Father Chad, welcome. Are you with us, Father Chad?
I mean, he was a second ago.
He's here. His mic is not muted. I'm not sure if the connection is there. I'm going to go ahead and bring up is it
bring up Plotinus Foe.
Yeah, sorry. And if Father Chad chimes in, we
Hello
will
there.
Engage. Hello, sir.
How's it going? My question's for David Koresh. I have a short series of questions.
You just condemned Nicodemus.
Okay, my first question is, what's the exact criteria for what must be covered according to you? Is it all the head, all the face, all the hair, or like what is it?
Everything except for the eyes, the entire body except for the eyes.
Okay, is there a circumstance in which that isn't required?
Obviously, there are extraordinary circumstances, like if you're running for your life or if you're giving birth to a child or something like that.
Are there any people you can be around where it's allowed to not do that?
The church's teaching, which I obey and you are disregarding, is that if you are with other men, you should be veiled.
All right. Does that extend to several other men?
Of course, if it's one man and it's indecent, of course it's indecent with multiple men.
Okay. And so, just to be clear, hair, face, everything except for the eyes would be covered in the
Yes.
presence of several men.
Correct.
Can you do me a favor and go to Luke chapter 7, verse 37 through 38 and read that for me, please?
You're giving me an extraordinary circumstance of trying to overthrow the doctrine of the church.
Can't you just read it?
Give me a break. It's just so pathetic. You guys have never addressed any of the quotes. You're just like, oh, there's a sick woman. Is that really your example?
Could you just read it?
Which verse?
Okay, Luke chapter 7, verse 37 through 38.
All right.
37 verse 38.
And behold, a woman in the city, who was a sinner, when she knew that Jesus sat at the table in the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster flask of fragrant oil and stood at his feet behind him weeping. And she began to wash his feet with her tears and wipe them with the hair of her head. And she kissed his feet and anointed them with the fragrant oil. Now when the Pharisees who had invited him saw this, he spoke to himself, saying, this man, if he were a prophet, would know who and what manner of woman this is who's touching him, for she's a sinner.
All right, now can you read verse 44?
And he said to him, you have rightly judged. Then he turned to the woman and said to Simon, do you see this woman? I entered your house. You gave me no water for my feet, but she has washed my feet with her tears and wiped them with the hair of her head.
So can you explain to me how, if someone has to be veiled for everything except for her eyes, how she can wash Jesus's feet with her hair and how other men can witness it?
Sure, Chad, you are a priest and you have not listened to this conversation where we made it very clear. The hair of the head is a covering. A woman does not have to cover her hair. It's only if she's done it up and made it pretty that it's indecent. Her hair is a covering.
So
this is
Luke,
actually proving our point. This is proving our point that hair can be exposed and is not automatically indecent.
Luke, can you hear me?
The face needs to be covered.
Luke, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, St. John Chrysostom, he's a valid priest or no? I know you believe he's not.
Then keep going with your question.
No, that is my question. Answer it, yes or no?
No.
Then why did you use him?
Because his teaching aligns with the whole early church. It is a consistent teaching. So it's
now,
actually
hold on. So this is what's deceptive about Luke, and I want everybody to understand it. Luke is using church fathers. He's calling them church fathers. And he's not revealing to you that he doesn't even believe that they're legitimate.
It's all over.
Okay,
the website.
No. Be quiet. St. Ambrose, is he a valid priest or not?
No, his ordination was invalid.
And yet you're using him.
Do you know why it was invalid? Do you know anything about it?
And yet you are using him.
Do you know anything about his ordination? Hey, Chad, do you know anything?
And yet you are using him as an authority of what the early church believed. Yes.
Well, wait a second. It's your authority. Don't you understand? It's against you that you call him an authority, and he condemns you. Don't you understand why I'm quoting?
No. You don't actually know. Actually, he doesn't condemn me. I actually teach that women should be veiled all the time.
Veiling the face.
You know what? You actually have to prove that still.
I already did.
But women are commanded to veil inside and outside church because they're commanded to pray without ceasing.
No, it's for modesty. That's the reason they give, so that she will not wound a youth who lusts after her. You just can't read. You're in denial.
No. Okay. Listen, you're being childish.
I didn't see what you were saying.
You're being childish. We're talking about 1 Corinthians 11, and it says, every woman who prayeth and prophesieth. That's what it says. Mm-hmm. And the scripture says that a woman should have her face veiled because of the angels. This is regarding praying and prophesying, and it is also regarding modesty. That's true.
Yeah.
I teach that, actually.
But you don't have to veil the face. So you're disobeying the universal teaching of the church.
You are providing patristic quotes to prove your case from fathers that we accept and you reject.
You reject their teaching. How can you say you accept them?
But you reject them as priests. How can you say you accept them?
You reject St. John Chrysostom. You reject St. Vincent of Lorraine. It's just a bit rich. I've heard this conversation, and you are quoting St. Vincent of Lorraine. You are using his dictum. You are using the commonitorium. as a rule, and yet you reject Saint Vincent of
What do I
Lorraine.
what do I reject
Admit it.
about him? What do I reject
Admit
about him,
it,
Chad?
Luke.
You're being
Luke,
very ambiguous. What do I
Luke.
reject about him? What do I reject?
Okay,
Tell
let me
me
ask.
specific.
Well, look, I just know what Jacob's told me.
Be specific. What do I reject about him?
You
Is he a
you
priest?
reject his
Person.
priesthood. Do you
Okay,
do you
his
reject
priesthood.
or accept?
If
You
I
accept or
say
deny his priesthood?
if
Do you
I
accept
say
or
he
deny?
is not a priest, that doesn't mean I think that his witness is useless or worthless. I don't say
Is
that.
he in the church?
He is of course. I believe he's a Christian. I believe a lot of these men were Christians,
Okay,
but not
so
priests.
So
but even
hold
if
on.
he's
Is he in the church?
Yes.
Is St. John Chrysostom in the church?
Yes, I believe that. God's the judge,
Is,
though, but I
is
believe
Father Joseph Swaden in the church?
he's a heretic.
Okay, so you're using a source of heretics, actually. So what I'm trying to say to you is that, and everybody listening, that you have not revealed what you actually believe about these sources. You are using sources that you actually believe are heretical to prove your point. And what I would like to see is for you to actually show your epistemic foundation. Who do you actually believe is in the church? Hold on. Who do you actually believe is actually in the church? And exclude everyone who you do not believe is in the church. Then make your case based on that criteria. Make your case based on true priests that are in the church. Now, they asked you a very valid question here, sir. They asked you whether or not you believed that that these men were authorities. And so, do you believe that?
Their unanimous testimony has authority. Yes.
Who's they? You are saying unanimous testimony of who? St. Vincent of Lorraine, who you reject as a priest, and you have problems with his other doctrines, yet you accept these doctrines.
Yes.
You're all over the place.
Exactly. You see, we're looking for the unanimous.
Can I clarify? Can I make sure I got this right for just for the audience? Am I getting this right that you are utilizing doctor or the writings of men that you do not find valid, you can't find them heretical,
Valid priests? No, I never said they're heretical.
or not heretical, but not valid priests? They're not valid,
right?
And then,
yes,
but
that's an actual doctrine. That's something the church upholds, Glenn. The church.
Wait. I'm confused.
I've barely gotten to speak at all, guys. Let me say something, okay?
I know,
Let me
No,
represent
but
you.
before
It's
you
a 5-on-1
speak,
right now.
Wait,
I'm
but
not.
hold on.
I'm just
I'm
trying to get clear for the audience.
I'm going to clarify it.
Okay.
Guys. The church has always considered. See, certain people have lived throughout history whose writings are representing the church's teaching. So they'll be in one part of the world. They say, in this church they teach this. In this city they teach this. In this city they teach this. When they all agree, that universal testimony has great weight. You understand?
But I have a right.
Hold on a second. I'm not done.
Speech and
Hold on.
You said that
Oh,
St. John
please,
Chrysostom
guys! I'm going to leave the
priest.
debate. You've got to let me
You
talk
said-
more than that.
you
Hold on,
said-
Father Joseph, please let him finish his opinion.
Fine.
You
Fine.
guys
And then-
will listen to even apologists. You will listen to Justin Martyr or Athenagoras. You'll even quote Tertullian, the Orthodox quote Tertullian, even though he later became an apostate, because these men are telling you what the Christians believe around the world. Even if they're not ordained, their testimony matters. So while I believe that the ordination is corrupted, and I could prove that, I wouldn't deny that they're Christians. I hope to see them in heaven. But that is exactly what we're commanded to do by Vincent. He says we need to go investigate the writings of the ancients and see what they all believed all around the world, starting at the beginning. So I do it on an individual doctrine by doctrine basis.
But you don't believe what St. Vincent of Lorraine believed.
About what?
No, well, that's what Jacob told me. What actually? Why don't you inform us? Because
statement.
you're actually. Oh, don't
One at a time, please.
Don't do that with your voice. It's just totally childish. Listen, tell us. Why don't you inform us what you believe? Why don't you tell us what it is that you disagree with St. Vincent of Lorraine on? All I know is the information I got from Jacob. He says that you deny St. Vincent of Lorraine, that you don't, you believe that he is incorrect.
About what?
No, you tell me.
Well,
do you or do you not?
This is just embarrassing for you, Chad. You're sure that I'm
No. I'm sorry, Luke. It's not embarrassing because what I'm trying to say is you are not being forthright with everybody.
Let me tell you something.
You are concealing. Hold on, Luke. Hold on. You're concealing what you actually believe about these men, and then you're using them as authorities, and you actually don't accept their authority. You're saying they're an authority, but you don't accept their authority. It's just That's why I had to get on this thread. I didn't even listen. I didn't even get on until the last minute. So you know what? Just take a chill pill, bud. Listen, you need to just tell us what is it that you disagree with St. Vincent of Lorraine on? Because if it's a major thing, it just totally destroys. You can't use him. He's not yours.
I see. Now, Chad, there are a lot of church fathers throughout history who teach things that you would say is wrong. For instance, for the first 300 years, the church pretty much universally taught the doctrine of the literal millennium, the 1,000-year reign. You would say they're all wrong about that, but you wouldn't condemn them. You wouldn't say they're all damned for that, would you?
Okay,
It's just a yes or no question. Well, I'm just
no,
asking
no,
a
actually,
question
no,
to
no,
illustrate a point.
No, you don't get to do that. You know,
I'm
you got to answer my
illustrating a
question.
point.
What? Do you, no, don't do it.
Just
Listen,
answer it.
just no.
Can I ask
Just
a question?
Tell us what you disagree with St. Vincent of
Father
Lorraine on.
Boniface.
You've used him ad nauseum, and yet you disagree with him. Tell us where.
No, he lays down a principle. See, Vincent didn't invent that principle that we need to verify our beliefs based on what was started in the beginning.
Can we throw Jacob on here? Can we throw Jacob on here? Would
no,
that be okay?
just let me finish my point, man. Because I got to leave.
I think we need to.
It's 5-on-1 at this point. Listen, we abide by the principle that whatever the church taught from the beginning around the world is the truth. That's what we believe. So we start in the beginning. You understand? I have legitimate bishops to rely on. Just because after Nicaea their ordinations
actually
are messed
don't.
up.
You
Hold
don't
on a
even
second.
accept any bishops today.
Just because after Nicaea their ordinations are messed up doesn't mean that there's just no doctrine to refer to. We have 300 years of doctrine to refer to.
All right, before I bring up Jacob for any of this, I just want to just kind of clarify. Are you picking and choosing what things you like that these people are saying and not accepting their full body of work?
Let me explain it.
Of course.
Yes.
Is that what it is?
Let me explain to you how that works.
Let me finish my question, because wouldn't that give reason to question? Because that's what a lot of Protestants do when they pick and choose what verses to uphold and which ones not.
Yes, he's a humanist.
I just want to make sure that was that's being.
Let me explain it, Glenn. We're not doing that.
He's totally arrogant.
That's wicked for a person to do that, and many Protestants do that.
You are being wicked. You're being totally arrogant.
Let me answer it, Chad. Let me answer it. So what we believe, Glenn, our belief as a group and the early church's teaching is that whatever was taught from the beginning is true. So the only way to know that what you believe on any particular doctrine is true is you need to go to the beginning of church history, see what all the fathers taught on that subject, and then you go throughout the centuries and you see, are they all teaching this? And then you find the point where on that specific doctrine, they stopped teaching that. And it always starts with one or two people who starts to deviate and say, I don't think I agree with that anymore.
And where are all of the fathers? You don't even have a criteria to determine who a father is.
No, we agree with all of you guys that the bishops of the early church who were the most renowned were church fathers.
No, you don't. You don't actually. You don't accept St. John Chrysostom. You don't accept St. Ambrose.
I'm talking about the first 3 centuries. But the reason why we quote the ones after Nicaea is because they agree with the early church on most issues. Get it? But if they disagree, but Chad, if they disagree with the early church on something, then we say they're wrong. They don't have the authority to override the early church's universal teaching that lasted for 300 years. Get it? That's our principle.
By what metric do you say that these fathers are illegitimate?
What do you mean illegitimate? We don't do that. You're using terminology that we never use. We don't say this church father is illegitimate. We look at individual doctrines.
You're saying they're not a real priest, bud.
Gentlemen, if you don't mind, I want to get Father Joseph in here, and then I want to be able to get Plantis Foe. Is any engagement if he wants to come up before I bring up Jacob? Because I know Father Chad has asked for Jacob to come back up for clarity. So before I get to that,
because Jacob needs to actually spill the beans on what Luke believes about all of this, because the audience needs to be enlightened. Luke is concealing.
Jacob doesn't even know us, guys. What a joke you rely on.
Hold on. Maximus did say in the chat he wanted to ask something. I wanted to point out, just real quick, 1 minute. Okay, so the problem is this: you don't believe that St. John Chrysostom was a priest. You don't believe St. Ambrose was a priest. You don't believe that St. Vincent was a priest. I have a question. Did they believe that they were priests?
Sure.
So why don't you believe them?
So if somebody believes they're a priest, then they're a priest. Is that your argument?
No, they were made priests. We know the process. And
what's your argument then? Make a better argument, Joseph. That was a terrible argument.
It's not an issue of a better argument. It's an issue of why are you picking and choosing what they believe and saying this is right, but that's wrong.
The answer is because I've looked at the church's teaching about an ordination, and in order for an ordination to be valid, it has to meet certain criteria, which their ordinations did not meet.
Wait, Joseph, so you're saying Joseph, all of those?
Are you scheduling a new debate? Are you scheduling a new debate?
I'll do it. I'll do it.
This is a different topic if we're talking about what is the course of ordination. But
he wants a new debate because it's all falling apart for him right now.
I just
No,
the one thing that I want to be clear on, if they weren't priests, Luke, then were they considered laymen that just weren't smart? Then are you saying that laymen could have more understanding and knowledge than the ordained leaders?
Laymen can have a lot of knowledge, just like I was saying. In the early church, there were men who were considered church fathers, like Justin Martyr, and they were not ordained as bishops, but they were preserving the teaching of the church. So yes,
No. They were, according to you, they set up a para-synagogue. They were acting as bishops when they weren't really bishops. That would make them schismatics.
Let
that
me
would
ask
make them evil. That would mean that they're not saved. That means because they're schismatics, they couldn't even be saved even by the shedding of their own blood.
I see. You're changing the subject, but let me ask you something, Chad.
No.
Let's say
But
your
case is falling apart right now in front of the whole world.
Chad, why don't
That's
you
what's happening
debate me
right
then?
now.
You and me, let's debate. You want to do it, Chad?
No, you know what,
gentlemen, we do have other people in the back. I want to get Plato's Foe. Are you with us still?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Did you present your question, sir?
Yeah, I did. I have one last question though.
Okay, please go ahead. After your last question, I'm gonna bring you down so I can bring up Maximus and Jacob.
Yeah, that's fine.
We are almost already at the
but
4
keep me on
mark,
when Jacob's on. Keep me on because I want Jacob to. Yeah, keep me on when Jacob's on.
I will. We are already an hour past, and I do not want to keep the gentlemen much on here longer than they already agreed. It was my request that they are extending their time, so I want to be appreciative of that, but also not abuse that. So please go ahead, Plantis Foe. Go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, my last question is for Luke. Have you ever seen the clown that hides from heretics?
Such immature children. Why am I even in here still?
Father bless. I gotta go.
Thank you for your question, Plantis Foe. I'm going to bring up Maximus, and then I will bring up Jacob after that. I just don't want it to be too crowded up here and people cross-talking, and it just doesn't make for good conversation. Maximus, thank you for waiting patiently. Please present your question.
Yeah. I guess I had 2 points. First is, a big issue with this is the epistle to Dionysus, which says that Christians don't have any kind of unique clothing or anything.
Because at the time they were all wearing clothing, Maximus.
So then this is just isn't that this would just be
real quick?
Some kind of custom?
Sorry, Maximus. Please wait a second. Luke, you didn't want people to overtalk you. Please let him get his entire thought out before responding.
Same thing.
I'm sorry. I know you may be frustrated, but just please let's just almost a little bit longer. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying that it says in the epistle, Christians live in different cities, different places, and they look like the people in those places, that they don't have any kind of distinct garb that sets them apart from other people because they're like 11 in the whole population. But then in regards to the status of this teaching, and I think this also kind of goes to your teaching on ordination, which was, you're choosing, especially on the ordination issue, you're choosing the view of a very specific party in that dispute that died out.
Which party?
So because what you're going to say is that because there was bishops who were ordained by Arians, but then said, we don't want to be Arians, and the church received that ordination, there's like, let's say 3 views on that, 3 or 4 views, and you're taking the one that ended up not being accepted at the time. And so I don't know how many fathers you could really say hold the opinion you're gonna hold. You might be able to bring up one, but this is the whole issue with this whole head veiling thing and all this stuff, is that you're going in as a historian and you're trying to figure out what this organization called the church taught by going in as an historian and seeing a few, we take an example here, take an example here, and then you're assuming if I take this Greek word and I use it literally, I take the literal translation of it, which, if you know anything about language, words actually escape their literal meaning. There's many words that we use in English, and we've forgotten what the literal rendering of the word is. If you take its composite parts and you turn it directly into a semantic meaning, it wouldn't mean what it means now. But so the point is that you're going as a historian, you're trying to determine this. But what the Bible says, what the church says, is that we receive the revelation from the church, and that Paul says, the grace that has been bestowed on you is sufficient to protect the tradition that's been handed on to you. So we receive what's been handed on to us, and then also we follow people who came before us, because Paul says, I am a man in Christ, so follow me. So there's no man in Christ for you to follow. There's no empirical example for you. And the point this is getting to is that the church has the mind of Christ. And not only does the church have the mind of Christ, it says, you hear my voice.
Glenn,
so the regenerate. No. I'm almost done. Those who are regenerate are able to hear the voice of Christ the shepherd. And so that is how we know what actually is universal teaching, is because whenever heresy enters into the sheepfold, it says, right, he doesn't enter in properly. When the heresy enters into the sheepfold, people recognize it and it becomes a debate. And when it becomes a debate, you're fully able to see, okay, what's the correct teaching, what's the incorrect teaching.
There was no debate on this in the early centuries. So you're the one debating.
Okay, so what sect? So then what sect said, you know what, we are the Orthodox, we see people are not fully veiling their bodies, we believe this is not proper, this contradicts what we were given, and they split off and became their thing. What said we are being the
truth? That's not how you find the truth. What did Vincent say is the method for finding the original doctrine?
You don't believe in
Vincent. You start at the beginning. Vincent, listen.
So then everyone must have been not regenerate at that point.
You can't let me
stop for a second. Well, no, people they're shooting me at once.
Let me finish. So if someone is filled with the Holy Spirit and their hierarchy is totally corrupted, the correct Christian thing to do is split off, right? Correct? Wall yourself off?
Absolutely. That's the teaching.
Okay. So then what group did that? Or had the Holy Spirit already, gone dark, no one was regenerate? What group did that over this issue?
Why do I have to say there is a group that did that, Maximus?
Because that would mean that the idea that this was a necessary Catholic doctrine for the integrity of the revelation of the church, for that idea to be in existence, one, it would be proved by the existence of such a group. And then two,
you're just rambling. You're saying your essential doctrine.
I think he's referring to the precedents. Like there would be like historical precedent of this act that took place would be the evidence of the claim.
Yeah, because anyone who follows the voice of Christ the shepherd, he says, "My sheep recognize my voice." The rational flock of Christ that preserves the mind of Christ. If there was like one or two or three, right? They would have broke away.
This is your argument. Let me summarize it. You're saying, Luke, the way I know that the doctrine of face veiling is wrong is because I can't find anybody doing it now, and I can't find a group that made a big deal out of it after they stopped doing it at some point. That's a terrible argument. That's not how you find the truth. The church
because it rests on theological premises. Oh, sorry, I'll let you finish. You
must start at the beginning, Maximus. Do you agree with that? The only way to know which church to join, which bishop to submit yourself to, the only way you can do that is if you first study on your own. Do you agree with that?
So first, I believe that there's churches that have to present the claim to you, and then they can support the claim by going into antiquity.
And they can lie to you, right?
Theological
they could lie to you. Couldn't they misrepresent
It's a theological premise that the church that is holy, one Catholic, holy apostolic. Yeah, sure.
Let me talk. Okay, do you believe that if a person wants to join the church, if they want to be part of the church, they should go and ask different churches to give them the early church's witness?
yeah, that's fine.
Okay, you agree with that. I agree with you too. You guys ought to show a little more sympathy for the average person like me in this world. We've got all these churches claiming to be the true apostolic church. You guys are true Orthodox, so you believe most of the church is apostate. So have some sympathy, for goodness sake. The average person has no idea what to do. They are being very obedient if they go to the early church fathers and they don't just trust some priest to say, "Trust me, bro. I'm the original. I've got the original doctrines." You have to verify that yourself.
So what early church fathers said, if anyone compromises this teaching, that means that they have fallen into heresy and that we must separate from them.
On this particular doctrine?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I take it from all of them saying it is a serious sin. It's a very serious sin. He says, don't tell me the sin is small, the sin is great, John Chrysostom says. He uses the Greek word mega. It's a huge sin. Do you think this is a huge sin, Joseph?
Come again?
If you wear an inadequate veil, do you believe that is a huge sin?
No, I don't.
Well, then you
that.
disagree with John Chrysostom.
No, I don't. I disagree with you.
Great. I
But
guess
to be clear, none of them
You're
said,
not the average
if you
person.
compromise this doctrine, this is heresy, we must break off.
Gentlemen, I would love to continue, but I do have one more person that we need to bring up, and this is referencing to a previous conversation for clarity. So Maximus, I'm going to bring you down at this time. Thank you for, I don't mean to be rushing you, I'm sorry, but we've already gone over the 4 hours. So I just want to bring up this last guest so we can get some clarity. So thank you, sir, for your time and for your questions. Any last statements?
Can I say one last thing?
Yes, please.
Which is, I think when we're looking into these things with the fathers and these things in the Greek and there's limited historical information, I just think that we need to be very, very humble about this because it's complicated and we're separated by quite a expanse of years. And so maybe just look over. Maybe there's something that you missed that you were unaware of. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, you need to not be in an echo chamber of people who already reject everything. You need to go into it completely, really honest and blind and say, maybe I'm wrong about a lot of things. Let's let the early church dictate my beliefs.
Thank you. So, real quick before I bring up Jacob up here, you said the early church's belief. Now, if this is just kind of testing the principle here. Are you saying all early churches belief? You're standing on all of that?
The universal teaching of the church is what we stand on, not one person's opinion or two.
I understand. I'm just saying the early church's belief, what they thought.
Universal consensus, yes.
So then again, I think I've referenced this earlier because this is like a contentious argument in other conversations that I've had. Would you say the early church believed that polygyny was a sin then?
Of course, absolutely.
But Augustine says that it was not.
So is his opinion in accordance with the rest of the church?
Part of the early church? Because you did say for the first 300 years, Augustine's writing was in 300, 45, 54?
No, it's 400s. But Glenn, you're illustrating the principle. If somebody contradicts the rest of the church's teachings, he is in sin. He contradicted a lot of doctrines of the church. He taught original sin. He taught that all babies go to hell if they die without baptism. He taught a lot of wrong doctrines. I'm just using this as a principle to test this because it hasn't. Yeah. The theory is just based off your theory, because when I look into it, I don't see the church actually rejecting polygyny not until the 6th century. So if that's the case, then if it wasn't considered a sin in the early church, are you saying that you also agree that then it's not a sin from the early church then? They all condemn polygamy. You should read Apostolic Constitutions and Hippolytus' book, Apostolic Tradition. They say if anybody's keeping concubines, he needs to just be married to one. That's it. One lawful wife. They're very strict about that.
Okay, thank you for that. I just wanted to make sure because I haven't seen anything that says that earlier. So I'll look into those.
They are stricter than anybody today on sexual morality.
Thank you. I'm going to bring up Jacob with Father Chad to have that final bit there.
Perfect.
Okay, Father bless.
God bless you.
I wanted to say, Luke, that what got me to realize that your group was nonsense was reading, because you do contradict Vincent, and you read the Commentatorium. This is chapter 5. It's in paragraph 13. I won't read the whole quote, but the end of it, he says, in response to the priests who were weeping and suffering in exile, he says, whom I say as a recompense for their steadfastness in adhering to religious antiquity, the Lord accounted them worthy of so great a reward that by their instrumentality He restored churches which had been destroyed, quickened with new life peoples who were spiritually dead, replaced on the heads of priests the crowns which had been torn from them, etc., etc., etc. St. Vincent says that the church was restored, Luke. He says that it was brought back from the Arian heresy, and you have
And
been...
the question is if he's right.
Of course he's right. He lived at the time.
Well, you're saying, of course, you're going to have to prove that. Let's have a debate about it next time.
We would have to, yeah. I think we would
No.
have to have...
Okay. Hold on. Let's do
Father.
a couple things here, Jacob. Okay, so I'd like you to reveal to the world what. Let's start with Saint Vincent of Lorraine. What does Luke say about him? Because he's not revealing that to us.
I'll let Luke speak on that.
It's Lorenz, Chad. You ever read Saint Vincent of Lorenz? But anyway, it's pretty obvious when some people's never read something. What was your question?
No, I have read him, of course.
Yeah.
Wow,
Don't be so arrogant. You're such a narcissist.
Have you
Okay,
read
go
Saint
ahead,
Vincent's
Jacob.
books?
Do you want me
Chad,
to
have you
answer
read his
what-
books?
I've read the Commonitorium. Of course, I've read it. Now, hold on, Jacob. Hold on. What does he say? Tell us. Bring it up.
About what?
What
About
Saint Vincent says
ordinations?
or what
I'm not
Luke
going to
says?
discuss ordinations, guys. Let's have a debate about it. I will prepare. I'll just
No,
show you on that one.
about Saint Vincent of Lorraine, because he's using somebody that he says is erroneous. Because if he's erroneous on a major point of doctrine, then he actually has to be excluded. He's not a trustworthy voice, but he's using him as a trustworthy
You're
voice on
saying
this.
that. I'm not saying that. You quote church fathers all the time from the early church that you have disagreements with on lots of doctrines, and you're saying I can't.
Luke, I'm not sure that we've had too many conversations for you to say what I do all the
I
time.
can give an example. I can give an example.
Jacob, could you please reveal to us what it is? Because he's clearly he's not telling us.
Well, this issue right here that Luke
It's ordinations. That's it.
that the ordinations are invalid post the Arian crisis, that they were all destroyed.
Yeah.
So he rejects Saint Chrysostom and Saint Ambrose and
I
Saint
reject their
Saint Augustine.
ordinations. Yes, we do. We
And
have
yet
to.
he uses
And
them
you
in
actually
this
blaspheme
debate
Saint Augustine. You
with-
slander him, and you call him
without
fornicator.
revealing to the whole world that he rejects them, and yet he uses them as church fathers, and the simple listener would think, oh yes, of course he accepts these fathers.
Right.
He's using them as authorities. He calls them fathers, and he's accepting them. This is what we're made to believe when we listen to him. But when we dig a little bit deeper, he's presenting to us people that by definition are acting as priests and bishops. They're setting up parallel synagogues, parasynagogues. So that would make them at least schismatics,
Like
if
John
not
Chrysostom.
heretics. Some of them he would call, like St. John Chrysostom, he would say he's a heretic, but yet he's using them to establish a doctrine. We don't do this as true Orthodox.
Chad, I look at every single individual doctrine as we're all required to, and we must see if a church father is teaching the same thing that was taught from the beginning.
No. A
and guess what?
a true church father for us, you have to understand, true church father for us is somebody who has the purity of the Orthodox faith. And the minute that they lose the purity of the Orthodox faith, we do not refer to them anymore as a church father. The
Do you
church
think babies
for us
go to hell
is
if they die
holy.
without baptism?
The church for us is holy. The church is the mystical
Let me
body
disprove that.
of
Let me
Jesus
disprove that right now.
Christ.
Let me disprove that you actually that you do that. Do you believe babies go to hell if they are not baptized?
Luke, actually, you're the one on the hot seat right now.
Do
and
you?
you're-
Do you? I'm disproving
You're
your notion.
self-destructing right now, and I understand
That's
why you're
something
trying to-
Augustine taught. And
You're
do you think he's a
self-destructing
church
right
father?
now.
But actually, no. Augustine taught, if we're being technical with the baby,
They go to
baptized
limbo.
babies,
I know.
They don't
go
go,
Father,
they go
with
to
respect-
the upper
I
reaches
know.
of Hades.
Father,
Yeah.
Father, with respect, let's not take his bait. You know,
Okay.
we've
Yeah.
got
So you
his
disagree
feet
with
down
that,
to the
don't you?
floor here.
That's a
Hold on.
heresy, according to you.
We've got his
Can
feet
I
nailed
make
to
a
the
statement?
floor.
Yeah.
Yes,
Can I
hold on,
make a
brother.
statement?
You have been rather quiet. Please, sir. Come in.
Judge not lest ye be judged. And Luke
Babies
is
can
setting
judge
himself up as a, excuse me, I'm talking, okay? That Luke is setting himself up as a judge. He's a god of our day. And
Yep.
so you can't get around him. You can't get
Did
around him.
Augustine
He'll
judge
go in
all-
every other direction, but because he is the judge.
Augustine judges all babies.
Luke decides
he will
who,
be judged.
who is
I will
true,
judge
who's
him.
false. Luke is a Lucist. Luke is a humanist. Luke decides the criteria of who he wants to accept, who he wants to reject. He likes this guy.
The
He doesn't like
unanimous
that guy.
testimony.
He
The
he
unanimous
he.
testimony. I've already made my position clear. Are you going to end the stream now, Glenn?
Yes. I was going to wrap it up here.
Okay,
so,
yeah.
please,
Luke is
I'm going to
listening.
give
Let's end
everybody.
it really
hold on.
quick. Let's end it.
I'm-
While Luke
I'm going to
is
allow
moving.
everybody
Hurry up.
to say
Save
their
it for
final
Luke.
words. So no, Father Chad, I'm
Save
gonna
the
let
debate
everybody
for
to
Luke.
say their
He's losing
final
it.
words. I'm letting everybody to say their final words, starting with Father Boniface, and then we'll go across and then up to the top row. Father Boniface, is there any final words that you would like to say, sir?
Yeah, Luke is a failing God. He's a faulty God. He's like a Roman God. You know, they all had faults. You know, he's one of them. So he needs to repent and put his faith and trust in Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Father Boniface. I'm going to go ahead and drop you off the screen at this point.
Okay, been a good evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Father Chad, any final thoughts, sir?
Well, actually, I just came on for the sake of the audience. I didn't really come on for the sake of Luke because obviously he's a narcissist. He is completely self-referential. He has no epistemic foundation for anything that he believes. He's basically a Lucist. He has his own idiosyncratic religion that he is creating whole cloth. He is using fathers when he wants to, rejecting them when he wants to. It is an idiosyncratic system. I think we've exposed that today. I think a lot of people didn't know that before. We were able to jump on and help people understand his inconsistencies. I'm more concerned with the audience. Of course, I'm concerned with Luke's soul. The church is the mystical body of Christ. And I want to say this, it's very important. Except you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. And Luke does not eat the flesh of the Son of God. Luke is outside of salvation. He is outside of the church. He has no authority. How can they call
Father Chad, I
upon
think we're
him
losing
whom
you. I'm sorry, we broke up a little bit.
they've
Sorry.
not heard? And how can they hear which except they be sent? Can you hear me now?
Yes, you're hearing now.
Luke is not sent by the church. Nobody should listen to Luke because Luke is not sent by the church. How can they preach except they be sent? Luke does not receive the body and blood of Christ. He is outside of salvation. He is outside of life. He's outside of the church. And we can tell by his fruits that he is arrogant, self-referential, and he's setting himself up over all of the church fathers arrogantly. He's arrogating to himself authority that does not belong to him. And I think everybody can hear that tonight. God bless you all.
Thank you, Father Chad. Jacob, would you like to say any final words? If so, let's try to keep it pretty brief.
I'm not as well read as either one of those guys, but I've spent a lot of time learning from both of them for a few months. I know, Luke, you think you barely knew me, whatever. My point is, Luke's position is retarded in the sense that it is a self-refuting ecclesiology. He relies upon the ante-Nicene fathers, who by the time of Cyprian taught what Father Chad is saying, that there's no salvation, no Eucharist outside the church with the bishops and priests and deacons. Luke says that this fell away. It's been gone for 1,700 years. Now he in the wilderness and his people out in the proverbial wilderness, not literal wilderness because he's living in a home, they're having to reestablish the church and this sort of, I don't know what to put it. We'd have to leave that for the debate. But my point is that it destroys itself, because if the church was the final authority, sola ecclesia, the church fathers and the bishops and so on was the authority that God set up, for God to then remove that means of salvation from the world for 1,700 years just completely fails the new covenant. There was no salvation. God did not save his people for all that time. There might have been some people who were saved in his mercy, but his ordinary means of salvation, his message, his presence in the world was gone. This is not even what the Protestants teach, because Luther and Calvin would say that there were saints in every generation of the Roman Catholic Church. They never said that all generations of the Catholic Church fell away. So that restorationism is false. All restorationist movements, whether they're as eloquent, erudite as Luke's, which is by far the most intelligent of any of them, or if they're as retarded as the Church of Christ, it doesn't matter. They're all false because they deny the new covenant and God's plan to save the world through the sacraments and the word. God bless you all. All right. See you later.
Thank you, Jacob. Father Joseph, would you like to say any final words?
I would. First off, I will grant to Luke that he's a young man with a very good mind. He's wrong on a lot of things. He is, in my opinion, deceiving people. But I have hope. Maybe if he is really looking for the truth, he'll find it. That said, Father Chad, came on, and Jacob. Before I even get to that, I want to say a couple of things. You're a very good debater, Luke. And I'm going to be honest, I felt very sad and I'll say a little broken because of the fact that I was not expecting this approach. That doesn't mean I believe your argument's good. But what I did learn in this is that I saw Father Boniface coming on, who is older than me and more experienced and was able to educate you. And I saw a younger generation of Orthodox and people like Jacob and people like Maximus, and they were able to get through to a lot of your stuff. And I saw that you were upset by that, but it made me realize that maybe I'm just in the middle and just trying to figure out how to get better and figure out, I don't have the energy of a young man, but I have to learn how to speak truth plainly like an old man. On this topic, though, I do want to say Father Chad came on, and he came on to help us. But before this debate even happened, he had asked me, and I'm going to just do this now if I can present my screen here real fast. He asked me to appeal for a widow who lost her husband. Sadly, a couple of weeks ago, and they're trying to get funeral expenses together. And it's not been easy. And so I wanted to take that time. Father Chad asked me to share this, and he was so kind to come on and help that I thought that I would. And I'm just going to include the link so you guys have it. Give me just a second. And all I'm going to say is that I think that the truth came out at the end. And I am, so proud of the people that came in to defend orthodoxy. And if any of you are interested in helping, I'm just going to put that on the screen. And Luke, I realize that you like debates. I'm not that good, but I'll take you on again if you want. If you're okay with it. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Father Joseph. I'm going to go ahead and give Luke the opportunity to say his final words before I wrap it up. Go ahead, Luke.
Well, I'll remind the viewers that this debate was originally about veiling, and we could have chosen a lot of different topics, but we chose veiling because it was just another example, a more unusual one that you guys aren't used to hearing, of a doctrine that the church rejects. And they didn't just forget about it, but whenever they hear about it, whenever a man like Joseph or all the other Orthodox we've spoken to, or Catholics, whenever they hear about this doctrine from the church, that women ought to modestly veil their faces in public and ought to flee the sight of men, they condemn that. You're talking about how mean I was to Boniface and to you, Joseph. You called us Muslims. You called us vile. You said that we're abusers of women. You said very evil things. That's why we're not part of your group. That's why we're not part of your group.
Gentlemen, we're not going back and forth now. This is your final statement.
He's just being nasty.
Yeah, we're
not. I know. Just let him finish his final statement.
Yeah. See, I would join your church if your church had the same doctrines as the early church, but you guys have many heresies. You chose not to stay on the topic of, they chose to bring up a lot of other things like ordinations. All right, I'll bring up some more. I'll close with this. The Orthodox Church endorses the worst sins imaginable. That's why we're not with them. They endorse murder, which is war. They endorse going to war. They endorse adultery, that is allowing divorce and remarriage up to 3 times. They endorse idolatry, bowing down to images and burning incense to them. They are blasphemers. They call Mary sinless when the church unanimously said she committed sins. They are evolutionists, most of them, which is a damnable heresy. They do have they have many heresies. I'll wrap it up. They have many heresies, and if they wanted us to join their church, they ought to be teaching what the early church taught. And you can see that we beat you on veiling. Yes, you accused us of being heretical. You accused us of being in sin, and then you backpedaled and said, actually, it's just a pious custom. It's not a dogma. You can do it if you want. So you conceded it. First, you condemn something righteous. Then you say, well, you can do it if you want. That's a complete contradiction. So we are going to abide by the early church's teaching, and I will debate you again. Choose the next subject for us to humiliate you
All right, thank you,
That
thank
was
you.
rude.
I'm going to
That's
say
so silly.
this, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for sticking with this through this long 4.5 hour debate. I
there
would
was
leave
three.
you with this.
Oh, sorry, Glenn.
Go
There
ahead,
were
go ahead,
three
Father
super
Joseph. You want
chats.
to
Can I just put them up?
Yes, yes.
Okay, Justin Harris, One Truth, and if blackout period gates of Hades prevailed. Okay, that was it. Sorry. Go ahead, Glenn.
I would like to leave everybody with this. This is in 2 Timothy, right? And it's 3:16 and 17. All scripture is breathed from God and is useful for teaching, rebuking, and correcting and training in righteousness, so that the servants of God may be thoroughly equipped for every good work. And I'm not saying this to say take away anything from any father's writing or any interpretations of ancient writing. God's word is what we need more than anything, an understanding of God's word. We could put things sometimes over what God's word is. We put this person's opinion over this and that. We have to be careful that we stick to what God's word says, and that always be the root. And I ask all of you to seek your leadership, your church leadership. If this is a question for you that is troubling of your heart, seek your leadership. Lean not onto your own understanding. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and retire from moderating and let Father Joseph decide if he wants to end the stream. I want to say Luke did a great job in dealing with his debate. His idea was challenged. Whether you agree with him or not, he did stand here and take on the crucible. He went through the gauntlet, so to say. Now, whether you agree with his opinion or not, he had the tenacity, the desire, the drive to stand there. Whether you think he's right or wrong, that takes true bravery. It says to be a man is to be courageous and act like one. And I believe that he did a very good job in acting like a man and standing here and being courageous, whether he's wrong or right. So with that being said, I want to say congratulations to both of you gentlemen. And thank you, Father Joseph, for thinking of me to moderate this debate.
You did a fantastic job, Glenn. Thank you so much.
I put on my Sunday best. I got a tie and a button up. I don't wear sleeves, so this was all you're going to get from me. So, but thank you.
Thank you for moderating, Glenn.
You have a great night, Glenn. Thank you so much. Yeah, you did do a good job. And that was great. Where'd he go?
I think he left, Father Joseph. I think he was done. That was like the end of the debate. So I was like, I had this thought. I was like, you know what? Maybe I should keep it going. Maybe I should just keep going. Well, Father Boniface is in the back. I could bring him back up for you.
Yeah, he's there. Hey, Father.
Hey, Benedicite.
Benedicite, how are you doing?
I think that he tried to beat you up. I think that, and I felt the intimidation coming from him and the arrogance, the talking down, and unfortunately, I think this is a representative splice of his generation, and it is rampant in the world today. It's a major spirit that the church has got to deal with, unfortunately. But that is so. He's very proud and he's very arrogant, and like I said, he's a god to himself. And every criticism you make to him, he turns it around and puts it back at you, and he runs and ducks just like all the other people that we have had debated on your podcast. And it's the same old thing, but they refuse to listen to correction. There's a way that seemeth right to a man, but its end thereof is the way of death. And unfortunately, he's going in that path, and like many other people are, young people are today. It's sad.
Yeah, but I actually appreciate what Father Chad and Jacob brought up, because I did not realize the kind of the deceptive nature of what these guys are teaching. It was only at the end of the debate when they brought it up. I didn't realize that they didn't regard Saint Augustine, Saint Cyprian of Carthage, Saint Vincent of Lorenz, that they weren't even valid priests. I mean, that to me was a shock, and it made me realize that this system that they have, is it's not honest. Yeah, welcome, Jacob.
I guess like I'm gonna say one more thing before I take off. The one thing that I was confused about, maybe now that everything's calmed down, get a little more clarity. He was referring to priests that he did not
recognize
as authority, but agreed with some of their writings. So it's kind of it's like picking and choosing, even though I reject their overall position.
That is a common thing, though. Calvinists will do that all the time. They'll appeal to church fathers to prove the Trinity, but then when it comes to like the Eucharist, they just like, Augustine's bad. But they'll appeal to Augustine to prove like their doctrines of grace all the time. You see this all the time.
That's the same thing with Gavin Ortland.
Yep.
He's doing the same thing, except they're trying to gather their own groups and to create their own followings, and they're using the internet, which is powerful, to do it. And they wouldn't be able to do it any other way.
I for the sake of the audience, because we're at like 4. We're gonna close now because we have our show tomorrow. Again,
are you reviewing my video, Father Joseph?
What?
Are you gonna review my video tomorrow?
Yeah, send it to me. Yeah, I'll review it. I'm not
okay.
kidding.
I think
if you want to pop on too, you can. Yeah, you told me what it was.
Twitter.
I'll go look for it. So tomorrow we will review one of Glenn's videos. You know how it goes tomorrow on the live Q&A. Everyone can pop on. Everyone can say what they want. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Yeah, I'm going to sign out too.
Yeah, I think I missed super chats, but I did, just because of the fact that I don't do what I normally do on Sundays, which is put up as much of the chats as possible. I will once again put this up just real quick because I did promise Father Chad. You're back, Father. Did you have any last words, sir, you wanted to talk about?
I just wanted to thank you for doing that for Haley. I mean, that is just, if anyone here listening wants to really feel like a Christian, Haley cannot pay you back. And the Lord is so clear about what we should do for those who are not able to repay us. So when we give to those who are not able to repay us, it just in some small way allows us to really feel like Christians.
Amen to that. And once again, all right, well, I'm going to cut it down. Glenn, again, thank you so much for hosting and moderating this debate.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you did great, man. I appreciate it.
And honestly, Father Boniface, Jacob, Father Chad, especially, you're the next generation coming, Jacob.
I know.
I'm so proud
help
of
us.
you. And
this is going to be a whole nother thing I'm going to dive into, because for those that don't know, I do have a degree in religion from Liberty University. I was a former youth pastor in a Protestant church, so I do have some Protestant teaching background. Okay, I may be
Father Chad's calling me. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Take care, Jacob. God bless you.
Not smart as you guys, but I'm fascinated, and I constantly study this. So, and me and Father Joseph has talked about me coming over to Orthodox, and I keep on telling him I have more and more questions every single time. So I gotta have all my questions.
Keep them coming.
Now this whole debate has just opened up a whole nother can of worms that I'm gonna have to sort through.
Hey Glenn, I'm a graduate of Philadelphia College of Bible.
Ah, okay. Yeah, wow. Yeah, so I went to Liberty and studied religion and over there, and became a youth pastor at a non-denominational church in Washington. And I cannot just oversee the difference, like the things that were not right, like from scripture to what's being preached and practiced. And I ended up getting asked to leave because I asked too many questions, because I'm a very curious person. So when things don't line up, and that was the thing with Luke's whole point about 1 Corinthians 11, it just didn't stay with me, because it says worship and not everyday life. And I'm just like, okay, where's this bridge that you're jumping to? So I don't see it, and now it looks like I'm going to be studying women in veils, like that needs to be studied anymore.
Wow. Hey, and I'm also, Glenn, I was also a Presbyterian minister.
Ah, Oh, very good.
In the
very good.
Bible, in the Bible Presbyterian Church, which was the more fundamental group,
Yeah, they were
activist
good.
group under Carl McIntyre.
Yeah. So Father Josiah is in Riverside. I'm in LA. So I've been meaning to go out there because and chat with him, but he's so dang busy, can never get out there. But
Now,
yeah, I
Father
just have a lot of
Josiah's
questions.
Antioch.
I went
he's
to Talbot.
Antiochian, though.
Yeah, I went to Talbot Seminary out in L.A.
Really?
in La Mirada. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't live too far from La Mirada. It's like maybe 10 minutes from where I'm at.
I lived in Riverside and Hollywood. I was a house parent at a children's home in Hollywood, Holly Grove Children's Home. And then
Okay.
Pasadena, lived in Pasadena. I floated around because I was struggling to make ends meet when I went to seminary. And I didn't finish at Talbot. I finished at Faith Theological Seminary in Philadelphia, which was the sister to the split sister of Westminster. So you familiar with Westminster?
Yeah, very familiar.
Yeah. I know some of their profs there. I went to Uganda with Jack Miller,
Okay. Yeah,
Harvey Kahn, Jack Miller. I know those guys personally. So anyway, yeah, that's some of my background. So I'll be happy to join in any conversation.
In Florida too, right? You're in Florida as well.
I'm
right?
in Florida. Yeah.
So I might be heading out there, and have a good work opportunity because I work in film production and movies now, and I produce podcasts. So I help a lot of other podcasters as a producer, and so I have a potential position out there in Orlando. So maybe we could catch up when we're not sweating so much out there, because the last time I was out there I was dying from the humidity. I don't know how you do it with everything that you guys got to wear. I wear sleeveless and I'm still dying out there.
Well, he has a dark cassock for indoors, but he also has a light cassock for outdoors, so it's more reflective of the sun.
Oh,
I wanna
yeah.
get one of
Oh,
those,
yeah.
But I can't. I have. It's too rich for my blood yet, but maybe soon. Maybe next summer.
Very good. Very good. I just have so many questions now. It's just now I'm going to be up all night.
Come
Great.
back tomorrow. We do our Sunday show at 8:30. We take all the calls.
Well, I
all the
mean,
questions.
tomorrow you're going to be reviewing my videos.
So you better be there. You got to be there.
I'm going to be just like sitting there quietly, like, okay, here we go. Because I've been known to piss off everybody from every Christian background. Like I presented the argument that recently I don't see anything clearly where God, explicitly says polygyny is a sin when he gives it, structure in like Exodus. And now I'm not saying that it isn't, or it is. I'm just saying it's not explicit. And I said it's not with his original design. I'm not pro this or pro that.
Right.
I'm just saying.
I would say that probably one of the biggest witnesses against polygyny in the fathers that you find is probably Saint. I want to say Saint Gregory the Great, but it might be Saint Leo the Great. He writes quite a bit on it.
And that was
gonna
not
mention
until
that,
like the
but
500. That was like after Augustine and
but the whole point is I wasn't going to mention it when Luke was trying to argue because I wasn't going to help him.
Because I was presenting because there's nothing I can find from the early church that refutes it. So
the main thing is this: we have to look at the legal structure of the Roman Empire at the time.
That's what the other thing I was pointing out. It was the Rome was influencing a lot of the early churches because they were conforming and getting accepted into as like the religion at the time, especially with Constantine. So of course the church was going to bring in some of the cultural norms to a degree to assimilate.
I would say that Rome happened to have the one man, one woman teaching that Christ himself expressed, but also the church informed the empire because, like, for example, like with divorce, the church kind of put limitations, like, because the Roman Empire originally, like before the church was integrated into the empire, if you divorced your wife and she was adulterous, you could kill her. And the church was like, okay, you could let the divorce happen, but you can't kill her.
We're not doing murder now. But then if there was an adulteress, it was both of them. It was the wife and the man that was caught in the act.
Right, exactly.
But they always
parties,
both parties were involved, and they always cling to like they stoned the wife. Well, but the guy got stoned too, so they both died. But no, I'm going to be interested in you reviewing my videos tomorrow, it's all on masculine purpose, and I really hit home on God gave Adam a purpose before he gave him a wife. And a lot of these young men are like, well, there's no marriageable women. Well, that is not your concern. Are you working on your purpose? God will bring you the wife, if that was what his wish for you or his desire. Not everybody's gonna have wives, and that's a good thing. Some people don't need to have wives. So it's just kind of recentering guys like their view right now in this culture that everything's very feminine and I just kind of go back to biblical masculinity and I use the scriptures and then some of the writings of early fathers to kind of support that we are so far off track. If we want to course correct our culture, we need to get back to this biblical masculine theology.
I would say that standard Orthodox masculinity as well. It's just the way it was, and when you see this kind of soy mentality among a lot of that you don't find that before like 1910, 1920.
Yeah,
I mean the corpus of the fathers and the church were masculine in nature. Even you find in the lives of female saints, like certain saintly nuns, etc. When they're bold, etc., they're described as manly. So the point is that there is something to that, and that's why I'm going to review the video.
Glenn, I went through a trial with the PCA, and because I was, my ex-wife was fighting me in my ministry, and I tried to defend my masculinity, and they destroyed it.
You're not the only one that told me that from the PCA. I have a friend named Nick. He's a former PCA pastor as well. His wife had him arrested when he was a pastor, when she was the one assaulting him, and the church removed him from his pastoral position, and now he does a podcast and he's written a book on feminism, very complimentary to Rachel Wilson's book, Occult Feminism.
I'm still waiting to get a copy of that. Yeah,
it's a great book. So it seems like it's been festered in the PCA and as well as other denominations for quite a long time.
It's actually, if you get into the book of Revelation with Jezebel, the Orthodox Church said that Gnosticism is feministic. And when you really look at the Protestant Church, you have to look at Gnosticism because they're denying the mystery of the Eucharist. And so therefore they make it a rationalistic scene and act. Their communion is just a rationalistic idea rather than a mystery of the real body, blood, soul, and divinity of Christ. And so then it becomes effeminate, and to the point where women get so much say in these churches that they're overruling the men, and so the men are too afraid. And then democracy. You see, democracy is also a denial of masculinity in the fact that a hierarchy.
The dictatorship. There's authority. It's a hierarchy and a dictatorship.
Well, you see, and they malign hierarchy and say that they're all dictators and bullies, but they become, in effect, it's projection. They become the bullies themselves. And so you have to look at good monarchs and what the rights of mankind are, and the whole structure, which I've looked at with the trial of Charles I, is a really worthwhile study to see the difference between monarchy and democracy, with Cromwell, the crook, and the regicide of Charles I. That would make a really good show. I did it with Bishop Enoch. We did do a show on that. And
hold on, Father. There's a David Daniel who showed up. I did unpin the message so no one can come back up. David, how can I help you?
Hi, Father. Bless Father.
May God bless you in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Hi. I was calling because I watched the stream tonight, and I don't know if this is a valid critique or not. And I say this humbly and definitely open for correction. But I do wonder if attacking his ecclesiology, like I don't think anyone is actually
we don't even know
buying his group
at this point. Yeah, I mean,
no one's buying his group or or even like, for example, like like pointing out where he's being arrogant or where he's being prideful, or even like his faulty ecclesiology. All these things that we can point out that are wrong, I do think doesn't really do a whole lot to attack the argument for the debate, which was veiling for women.
If anything, it actually attacks the mindset of it. Like you're looking at the characteristics. If this is wrong, if he doesn't accept this, then it's more of a, what is the ultimate reason that you're standing on? If you're rejecting all these things and you're pointing out these flaws and you're unwilling to accept this, then how can we know that you're coming from a non-biased approach rather than an ultimate, like another?
Well, he may very well be biased. I'm not saying he's not biased and that he doesn't have an agenda. I'm not arguing that. I believe he does. And I think most people yeah, exactly. I'm not arguing that. I believe he does. And I think everyone can see past that. I think the audience is smart enough to see that he's got an agenda. I don't think that that's what needs to be disproven. Everyone already sees that clear as day. I'm just wondering, could more have been done with the actual topic of the debate versus proving all the other things, which I think is pretty evident are off?
I don't think. I think that he was too proud to give any ground, and so you couldn't get around him in his argument. So it becomes very personal. The rationality of the argument was lost, and therefore it becomes willful. Evangelism is not just an intellectual game; it's a willful game, because a man has to submit his will to God in order to be saved, and so he's got to admit that he has failed, that he's rebelled, and that he's disobedient to God, and he needs to humbly say, "Yes, Lord, I need salvation, and I admit my faults. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way." And so it's a willful issue too, that you will find that people are not one just on a rationalistic, logical issue. It's a willful issue when it comes to the Lord Jesus Christ and his kingship and his salvation. So that's why I bring up other issues too, to call him to acceptance of authority. When I said you strain in a gnat and swallow a camel, you're a one issue guy, but you're missing out 1,000 others which are of even more importance.
And
yeah, no argument for me on that at all.
My question to him was, how did he connect from worship to something beyond it without Paul claiming something beyond it? That was the only thing that
I think that's a great point to bring up.
Yeah,
I will say that the Nicodemus quote, the Saint Nicodemus quote, caught me off guard. The Saint Nicodemus
quote caught me off guard as well, and I want to see the source of that, and I want to see the reasoning. I suspect that it has something to do with his position in the Ottoman Empire. However, that does not prove a thing. It's a suspicion.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got that. Surprised me. I found, but the discovery for me, the big wake up thing for me, was the realization that he doesn't actually believe in any of these fathers that he's quoting, and he doesn't even respect them that they were clergy, which is insane. I would think that if that's just weird to me. But I will say this: people are someone said ask OCZ. We're not asking OCZ. We can find it another way. Anyway, it's going on.
Thank you for taking time. I appreciate it for taking me on for this last brief.
Coming on. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
so
I mean, these theological questions, Father. I'm going to wrap it up after this. I'm going to take off. Always are so fascinating because there's so mysterious. There's some of these things are just so not absolute. We know that when the Ten Commandments are written, we know what is a sin. We know what God calls a sin because he's very explicit and he said, this is a sin, right? And there's a lot of ambiguous things, that connected, sometimes. And like some people make things to be greater maybe than they are. Or maybe sometimes we don't give the importance to it as much as we should because of our own culture and everything that we live in. And it's one of those things that we are always going to be uncertain of, and that's where I think faith is. That's where it takes faith to really like stand firm on it. You know, you have to have that faith. So
Yeah, I agree. Definitely agree there. In that case, Glenn, thank you again for hosting. Father Boniface, as always, thank you for being there. And God
Yeah.
willing, we'll see again. We'll all meet again tomorrow when we go on 8:30 on Sunday. So thank you for watching. Thank you everyone for participating. I know for a lot of our regular people, it's not what we're normally doing, but we'll be back to that tomorrow night at 8:30 Eastern Standard. And may God bless you in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Have a good night, everybody. And
Amen.
through the prayers of Holy Fathers to Jesus Christ, our God, have mercy on us and save us.
Amen. Amen.